Welcome to the Pre-Pod. I'm here with Dr. Marcie Goodrow, Developmental Specialist and Doctor of Special Education.
Do I
Hello.
say? Okay. Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming in. I feel that you are like if I had a Wonder Woman Wednesday, I used to call it that instead of Women Crush Wednesday. I called it Wonder Woman Wednesday. I would choose you. And it's because I love that you're a Jill of all trades and that you have such a gift with helping in humans. So tell us a little bit like about what you do.
Okay, so I've been a special education teacher for 20 years. And about 6 years ago, I started my own business called Good to Know Goodrow, where I started working with families and schools, anyone that needed my assistance with different things like sensory processing, children with behaviors that parents just couldn't figure out. Why were they doing this? Kids that just need social skills. It's a variety of things. And it's ages 1.5 up to adult. So I work with all age ranges. And I also have my own program in my school district that I work for, K through 12, that I just started 2 years ago. But I love it. And I'm able to work with children 5 to 21 with developmental disabilities. And it's an awesome setup and I really enjoy it. I get to make my own curriculum and everything. So it's great.
Yeah, that's great. And tell us your story. Like, how did you get into this?
I think it actually started really young. Like, I don't remember thinking I would be anything except a teacher. Like, that's just kind of what I knew I was going to do. My mom had a daycare and she worked from home. So because she was a single parent for many years. So that helped her to be home so that she could make sure we were okay if we had to stay home from school and things like that. She had so many different types of children that she worked with. And I watched her work with so many different types of personalities and ages and different abilities, disabilities, all types of things. And she had that daycare for over 20 years. And so I grew up in the daycare. So I think that taught me a lot about what I know about how to work with people and work with children, especially. I think because I was around them my entire life and I just was comfortable with it. So it was a really good learning experience for my mother. So it worked out really well because she could stay home with us. So it worked out really well. So that's where it started. Basically I remember being 5 years old up, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. So that's what
awesome.
I do.
Now, I know that you have, because you are the Jill of all trades, you have built 2 programs. One is at school, and one is with your own personal business. And they both are acronyms of PLEASE and STEPS. So tell us a bit about PLEASE and then STEPS.
So PLEASE program is the K through 12 program. It's a developmentally based program. So I do everything based on a person's developmental level versus their age, their chronological age. So if someone's 15 years old, if they're developmentally 3, I treat them as if they're 3. And we move up from there. So basically we start where they are and we move up. So curriculum is individual. Everything's individual. I have several staff that work with each person to help make sure that happens. I do everything from providing communication options to nonverbal children, to toilet training, to teaching children to eat, to everything. Like I've done everything, I feel like at this point. Teaching children to walk, I've done it all. And that's called PLEASE, which stands for Positive Learning Every Day through Adaptive Skills and Engagement, which basically means I'm teaching them to adapt in their different situations, life skills, and learning to engage with other people in a positive way. And then my other program is called the STEPS program, and that's called Success Through Education of Pro-Social Skills. And that is a program I do out of my home from Good to Know Goodrow. And I have ages 1.5 up to adult. So we work on social skills. We do organized play. We do organized conversations. We do unorganized play, unorganized conversations, so that I have the opportunity to teach in the moment of appropriate social skills. And it's been so successful. And I went from starting with 2 children, and I now have 45 enrolled.
Wow.
Yeah, which in this area where we live in the North Country is a lot of children. So
yeah,
it's worked out really well, and I love it. I just love it. And my own kids have benefited from it too. So that's worked out really well too.
that's really great. Especially that you can bring it with your own kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you said you built your own business. Good to know, Goodrow. You're also a teacher. Like, what made you expand that branch?
Honestly, I was behavior specialist for the school district for 5 years. That's the role they gave me because of my expertise with behavior. So they needed someone to do it. So I did it for 5 years. They cut my program and put me in my program I'm in now, which was actually just K-3 to begin with, and now it's K-12. I was angry. I took my program with me and I said, I'm going to teach it from my house. And that was Steps. I created that. So I took it home and I started it at my home. And this county that I live in just totally embraced it. They love it. Agencies help support it. It's just been so successful. And honestly, it doesn't feel like work to me. So one reason I took it was because I have fun doing it. It's play. My work is my play. And I don't feel like I'm working really. And it's fun. And the kids, I've had kids that have been with me the entire time. So they started with me 6.5 years ago, and they've been with me the whole time. So I've seen them go from like 8 years old up to teenagers at this point. And it's really neat to see happen. And then siblings have started coming. So that changes my numbers. And then siblings are nice because siblings are typically typical children, is what we call typical. So I have typical, I have neurotypical, I have atypical, all in one group together, which is what I was looking to do. So it's awesome. It's worked out really well. So that's why I took it, because they cut it at the school district I was in. So.
Yeah, and it would be great if I feel if there were more like programs like that you built yourself in the education system. Because I know it's that was cut, that.
Yeah. Well, that's unfortunately what happens a lot. Things get cut. And if they don't deem it necessary, then it gets cut. So, and I fought for it. I mean, anyone that knows me knows that I didn't go down without a fight. So
yeah, I feel like the education system is very overlooked. Like they cut a lot of the good things, and it would be nice. Hopefully one day we can say in our world that our teachers and education system is built better.
Well, if New York State would start letting teachers teach like we used to, just teach, not tell us they have to get graded on these exams and all this kinds of stuff, it would happen, because teachers would start to take more time to connect with their students than they do now, because they wouldn't feel so pressured as to get this curriculum in that they need to do. Unfortunately, the focus of New York State schools is the academic and the testing that tests the teachers. Basically, it scores the schools. So unfortunately, that's been, because that is where the funding comes from. That's where everything comes from. And it's unfortunate because it's taking away from the personal contact and the personal engagement with children and their families, because they're so overworked. They're tired, and they've taken away all the teachers' individuality with these regulations. So they've taken away all of that, and it's really sad because I've seen it change over the last 20 years, and it's hard to watch. But developmentally is the most appropriate in my terms. That's what I feel like. I don't think like 5-year-olds should be sitting at tables for an hour doing worksheets, because their bodies aren't capable of doing that. I'm not capable of doing that. Yeah. So I don't know how 5-year-olds are supposed to sit there and do it. And then behaviors happen. So many kids are on medication now. And I don't think it's because of them. I think it's because of the way the system is created now. I think there's too much sitting, and there's too much expectation for these little people that are not ready. They're not ready for that. So hopefully things will turn around eventually again. I hope so. So I used to have naps in 5th grade and when I was 5 years old, naps in kindergarten. So, yeah. And I turned out fine. So,
silly. So what I wanted to ask you, when it comes to being a developmental specialist, what are the misconceptions of either your students or the curriculum that you teach? Like, what are the misconceptions or mistakes you see others maybe make?
Well, misconceptions of my particular programs that I've seen over the years and heard from other people is that they're not doing anything. Okay, so when someone sometimes occasionally will walk by my program and they happen to see what we're doing, yes, we are playing at times. We are on the floor, we are playing together. Playing is a huge learning moment. So playing is learning. So if someone comes by and they happen to miss the worksheet that we just did, together to help them learn how to write and all such things, yes, we're playing on the floor. And yes, I'm being a goofball in the hallway with them. And, like whatever they're doing, because they're bouncing down the hall in this bouncy donkey, whatever it is, there is so much learning going on in that moment. So people see that and they don't understand what it is or what I do. They will interpret it as, oh, is that what they do all day? They just play all day? Kind of. but we play, we're learning when we play. It's the misconception that having fun and playing is a waste of time, because it's not. Playing is a huge factor in what kids learn and how they learn to interact and how they learn to win and lose, how they jumping, running, all that stuff is all physical development. It's all there. Like there's so many goals and behaviors and things that kids are learning when they're playing, when they are, it might look like they're playing and we're actually working. Like I have things that I created called BINS. It's the DOC system, developmentally organized curriculum system. I've created this system. They're in shoebox bins. Everything is like play-based, but it's all learning. So it's fine motor, clipping clothespins. It's, like a game that's in the box, whatever it is, everything in there is a learning tool. But when people look at it and they don't understand it and they're used to book and paper and pencil and pen, that's not what I do. So I have a lot of children that are 3-year-olds. They're not going to use a pencil, first of all. And yeah, they're 15, but they're 3. So I'm not going to make them act like they're 15 when they're not ready for that. So that's a misconception. And I think, unfortunately, like I was saying about teachers, I think what ends up happening for them, mistakes they make, is they forget to play. They forget to be human. It's okay to make mistakes in front of your students. In fact, it's important that you do. It's okay to be human in front of your students. Like, make a mistake, forget something. We all do. We just don't like to admit to it. Just say, I'm having a bad day. It's okay. Kids need to see that. They need to see that it's okay to be sad. It's okay to have a bad day. And you know what? Occasionally teachers get angry. Apologize for it after. Don't try to make it like act like nothing happened. Apologize for it after. I see that as lacking a lot. There's a lack of the human connection and the human behavior. Like, we're not perfect and we're not supposed to be. And I think if kids saw that, they would feel better about a lot of things, because they would be like, oh, I'm not an outcast. I'm not crazy. I'm not, like she gets sad too. And she's got, I was actually told in college not to tell my kids, my students, about my own family, because it's a source of personal information that they can use against me. And I was like, well, okay, but I'm going to talk about my kids when I have them because I'm one of those people. Like, I talk about everything. They know all my pets' names. They know my kids' names. They've met my kids. That, like, I don't think that's right personally. I think that they should know that you're a person. And there are boundaries. There are some kids that you can't give that information to because there's a limit with boundaries. There's an issue, but that's a case by case scenario. But that's a big thing that I think is missing. That misconception, mistakes that people are making is they're not being human. Just be a person and just show them that you get sad, you get mad, you get overwhelmed, you forget things. Like, nobody is perfect. I don't like the idea of perfection, because there really is I don't think there is a definition for perfection, honestly. I think it's everyone's own definition of what it is. So that's my idea on that.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. it made me think of like humanized education, right?
Mhm.
Like, and it's really sad to hear that playing isn't considered an education because playing is using your, I mean, from my understanding, it's like using your mind, and then like, for example, I think of like sorry,
That's right.
my mind just goes, example with Play-Doh and all these things that are out there, you're building. And if you think about it, people that are building, they're using bricks or whatever, whatever materials. So how is that different from practicing and building? Or
Mhm.
with coding, they have those coding games and
Yeah.
putting things together. So it's sad that playing isn't considered a form of learning, and it's more exciting. I feel like um, I'm more interested when I'm hands-on.
Yeah.
Like that's what made, because I wasn't the greatest in science class, but when we had the labs and we could
Mhm.
physically work with the labs,
Materials. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like I learned more by that
Mhm.
than paper, like you said, paper books. So that's I really like that you brought that in because that's interesting that that's something it has a negative connotation.
Well, and it's developmentally based. Like it's research based. Like when you engage the brain, the body, everything together, it's a better learning experience. It's more inclusive learning experience. It's going to engage the entire body. So it is important. And I think like they're cutting like playtime on the playground keeps getting shorter and shorter, and that's not good because kids aren't learning how to socialize. They're not learning how to set their own boundaries with people. They're not learning those things, and they're necessary for life as an adult. So like if you go into the job and you've never been taught how to like deal with somebody who like sits in your seat or something, you know what I mean, like, and then you just go over and push them or like what is that? You got a 30-year-old brawling in the conference room. Like what is going to happen in 20 years when these children are adults? And I think people forget that. Like you have to learn how to engage with people. Like that's the biggest part of your life. And if you don't know how to engage with people, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to be sad. You're going to feel like you're separated. It's going to affect so many things. And I think that that's a huge issue that's happening with removing playtime and taking kids' playtime as a punishment makes me so angry because a lot of times the kids that are getting in trouble at those times they need that time. They need it to move and get it out of their system. And even if you control the playtime, that's fine, but let them walk a laps, let them do something like something. Don't make them sit in that chair for another 30 minutes. Like it doesn't make sense to me. It's not logical. And I think that, and I don't think it's teachers' fault a lot of the time. I think they're overwhelmed. And I think that they don't have support from administration saying to them, no, I think they should go outside and play, even if they've had a bad morning. They don't have that support. They're actually encouraged to be like, no, you need to be punitive. Well, you don't always have to be punitive. There are times for it. There are times where consequences need to be put in place, but there's times where they don't have to be. And actually a consequence of walking around the playground and doing laps while your friends are doing what they want, that's still a consequence, but it's still allowing for movement at the same time. So I don't know. I think thinking about ourselves and how we need breaks and we need to move. Yeah. And we'll make excuses to go to the bathroom just to get out of the room. Yeah. like we all do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, you can't tell a kid not to do it. We all do it. So I don't know. It's double standards between children and adults. So it's,
That is true. I've seen, actually, I love memes, and I saw this meme that it kind of touched on that subject that, we're allowed to have a breakdown when we're sad. We're allowed to be frustrated and upset, and we're allowed to feel. But when a child does it, we're like, hey,
you're fine.
Stop it.
You're fine. Yeah, I know. And as a parent myself and a teacher, I can tell you that I typically let my children have their feelings. Like you want to be mad, then that's fine. Be mad. Like go do your thing. Like stomp up the stairs, slam the door, do whatever you got to do. I don't penalize them for that. And I encourage it because I'm like, if you're upset, then go take a break. go do what you need to do. And typically in the 10 or 15 minutes, they're calm enough and they can talk about it. But I don't have a lot of that in my house, honestly, because I think we treat them like they're people. We don't treat them differently. Like if we need to, not saying I talk everything out with them because I'm still their mama. So what I say goes, but I am saying that I at least listen to them. So if they have they want to talk to me, I will listen. Doesn't mean I'm going to agree, but I will listen. And that's a big thing that kids don't get. They don't get listened to. People are out constantly telling them to stop. You're fine. Stop. And sometimes they need that, but a lot of the time they don't. Just listen for like 2 minutes. And sometimes kids only want to listen for 30. They want to get out one thing and like, just let them do it. Move on with your day. Just let them do it. So that's like we were talking about earlier. Humans, just treat them like humans. That's all.
Yeah. And speaking of humans, I feel like it's harder in this world right now, especially for humans that have developmental struggles or disabilities. I don't like either of those terms because I feel like it kind of like diminishes them as people. But properly speaking, what is your feeling of misconceptions with humans that have a harder time in with being heard or being seen?
The biggest problem I have is nonverbal people. I'm a huge advocate for nonverbal individuals, and I am a loudmouth, so I will speak for them if I have to, which I do quite frequently. I will give them any source of communication that works for them, because everyone deserves to have a source of communication, to say whether they want something, to say if they like it or don't like it. Like I have one little girl who's learning how to use a switch, and it's a little flat switch where she touches it with her hand and she can turn the iPad on and off. She can speak through a thing that I had my daughter record her voice. I didn't think she wanted my voice. So it says things like, I want to use my iPad, types of things like that. So that I know what she likes, because I've learned her. So I give her choices in her world. So like if she's crying, I know that she's upset about something. So I'll try to figure it out and we'll go from there. Like a lot of people just try to shush her. Well, don't shush her. She's crying for a reason. It's those kinds of things. I have another student who's nonverbal. He's 15. He uses an iPad to speak. And when I first introduced the iPad, his speech therapist was like, no, he's going to break it, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, I'm going to put a rugged case on it. We'll see what happens. Like the PEC system works for some kids as little picture symbols. It's basically a picture symbol in an iPad. But the nice thing about the iPad is I can change it whenever I need to. It talks out loud so they can hear what it's saying. He'll talk to me in complete sentences, and he'll talk to me all day. And people say, oh, how's it? I said, he's the noisiest one in the classroom. He's nonverbal, but he talks the most. So like, to me, a huge thing is underestimating them, underestimating their ability, talking in front of them, treating them as if they're not there, making decisions for them. Like if you don't like something, then tell me you don't like it. Like I have a little boy that he's 14 now. He would eat food he didn't like because he didn't know how to say no. So he would literally gag and throw up food. And I'm like, honey, you don't like it. So I took me a year to teach him how to say, I hate it, I like it. And I had to teach him hate and like, because I don't like it wasn't concrete enough. So now I try to offer him something he doesn't like. He's like, no, thanks. I hate it. I'm like, thank God. So, but the thing is, what saddened me is that it went on for so long. He was 8 years old when I got him. And I'm like, this is 3 years of being in school. And nobody thought to teach him to say no. Like, to me, that makes me angry, because it's like they have a right, like anyone else, to refuse something. You're not going to make me eat something I don't want to eat. Not going to happen. I will kick and scream and do whatever I got to do. I don't care. But see, that's a big thing for me, is the nonverbal. And people with developmental differences is what I call them. Developmental differences. They are usually more intelligent than we are, quite honestly, because they have to figure out their entire environment, every person in it, how to manipulate it and get what they need. And they have to do it all without words. So they are very intelligent people, and they're very people intelligent, because they figure out what you like, what ticks you off? What do I have? They pay attention to what I call prompts. So like if you're teaching them something and every time the right answer's on the right and you happen to touch it, like you look at it, you glance at it for a second, they notice those things and they will pick the one that you look at every time because they're like, she looked over there. They figure it out. They are so smart. And people think because they are developmentally delayed or they don't speak or they don't, that they're not. And it's like, why do you just assume that they're not intelligent? Like who are you to say that? Maybe you're the less intelligent one to assume that. Like I get frustrated by that. That's what frustrates me. And also putting people in bubbles. So like if he has autism, this is where he is. This is what he can do. No, that's not true. Every person with autism is different, just like every other person. He can do these things. And who are you to say he can't? And, that frustrates me too. It's the underestimation of people. That frustrates me. It's like, why don't you try first? Let them try first before you assume that they can't do it. Just things like that. It really gets me going. So it's the underestimation is the basic thing. I'm going to write a book on it someday.
I hope you do.
I'm planning on it because I want to teach people how to work with people that are nonverbal because I've done it for so many years. It's actually one of my favorite things to do because they're so intriguing.
Awesome.
They're so amazing. They're really cool people. Yeah.
I think that you're amazing and really cool.
Thank you.
I think the first time I spoke with you, I thought this woman, but this woman needs like a book or like, I think you need to be bigger.
Thank you.
Just because I think it's beautiful how you created these systems. I love that you use acronyms, so it makes it easy to be like,
that's my thing.
Okay. Yes, and it's helping others understand humans, humans that are just maybe a little bit different than yourself. And one of the things that I really like that you told me earlier before we started recording, which I'll have you touch base on that. You were saying, what would it feel like if you were nonverbal? How would you feel? Mm-hmm. And that I'll let you take the reins on because I thought that was such a good perspective to share.
Right. Yeah. I've actually done a training for people on this. And I was hoping to do it more frequently, but it only happened once. What I did is I had people come in. They were able to use all of their verbal language when they came in. Then what I did is I would give them scenarios. So like one of the scenarios was, I need to go to the bathroom, but I can't. How am I going to tell somebody? So first I gave them PECS pictures and I said, the PECS pictures they needed, I gave them to them. Then I'd give them another scenario. They were hungry, something like that, but I would only give them foods that I think they should have on the PECS board. And I'd be like, here's your choices. And they'd have to pick from that board. And I didn't put things that typically people would want. So just to make my point. So I made them choose from that. Then what I did is I gave them an iPad and said, okay, now explore the iPad, because the iPad gives you a plethora of things a person can choose from. But you have to give the individual time to play around with it and figure it out. You can't just like expect them to figure it out. Like you have to help them and, So I gave them a mini lesson in some things, and then they learned how to use it. Then I gave them the same scenarios with nothing. They didn't have any words. They didn't have any PECS. They didn't have any iPad, nothing. I said, now figure out how you're going to tell me what you need. And I said, you can't open the door because you're not allowed to, because that's a rule in the classroom. And if you get out of your seat, you're going to be told to sit back down. But you have to go to the bathroom. How are you going to tell me? And one thing I saw with every person in the room were like, oh my God, like this is hard. I said, yeah, it is. It makes you want to literally throw something. It makes you want to yell and scream. And I said, and this is where this behavior comes from. But people are always stopping the behaviors before they figure out what's the function behind the behavior. They just want to stop the behavior. Well, there's a reason they're doing it. So give them communication, and the behavior will disappear after a while. Occasionally it'll show up again because it's going to on certain occasions. Like I had a little girl who cried every time she went around the room, every time I moved her. We figured out shortly in that she was basically blind, but she was also cerebral palsy, couldn't walk on her own. So we had to pick her up and move her to places, and it scared her to move her. So what I figured out is if I put a transition object in her hand every day, and we did the same routine every day. So the first one was changing her pull-up. So we put a pull-up in her hand. And after a couple of days of that, she figured it out immediately and stopped crying during transitions. So how would that feel if you couldn't speak, were blind, couldn't physically move yourself because you were paralyzed basically from the head down, and people are moving you and they're not telling you where they're putting you, and you don't know where you're going? That would scare me.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, like putting yourself in their shoes. What is upsetting them and why are they so upset? I don't want her crying every day when I move her. I don't want to make her upset every day when I move her. But a lot of people, unfortunately, would just, oh, she's just crying. Like they would just go on with their day, and then, they wouldn't figure out a system for her. The IEPs I've gotten on kids that are nonverbal and cerebral palsy and different things like that, their goal is putting their hands in water. I'm like, that's their goal. Like, there's no goal for communication. There's no goal. Like, so like, why do you just assume that's all they can do, or that's all they want to do? Like, who are you to assume that? So that frustrates me. It's the underestimation, and people try going an hour without speaking and just see how challenging it is, especially in a place where you need help. Like I encourage the people that came to my training, go to a restaurant and just don't speak, and then see what happens. Like, point to your menu, see how well people respond to that. So I can tell you they're not going to respond well. But that's a training I want to get out to more people. I want to start trying to do that, because I think that if people had more, what's the word I'm looking for? Awareness of it, what it felt like, how challenging it is. And then they would understand these children's behaviors or adults' behaviors, like ARC homes and things like that. They would understand why they're doing it. And actually, I'm going to be doing trainings with our local ARCs soon.
That's awesome.
I'm excited about that. The residential facilities for citizen advocates, actually. So I'm going to be able to start training them to teach them these things. Like, yeah, he's doing that, but why is he doing that? Like a lot of people forget the why. They just see the behavior and they don't try to figure out why. Well, when I swear in my car at somebody who went by me, there's a reason. I don't just like swear at them. Like they did something to like make me mad. So like, it's as simple as that. Like, like you don't feel good, so you go take a shower. Like it's so simple. It's a very simple thing. There's a function for every behavior, whether you're verbal, nonverbal, disabled, abled, it doesn't matter. Everybody has a function, and everyone. And that's the thing. They don't include everyone, especially little girls I've noticed in wheelchairs that are physically disabled, nonverbal, the whole thing. They do not assume that they can do anything. And that drives me crazy.
That's really sad to hear. And it's also sad that, like, in order for the awareness to come to like something like ARC programs is by you having to go to them versus it being something that you would think that should be
looking
taught.
for. Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like that's why disability, the term, to me has such a negative connotation, because I feel like they're like, well, you have a disability, so boop, labeled.
I know. Yeah, they do. That's the only way that you get your resources. That's how you get what you need. If you don't have that label, you don't get it. And I know, for like my daughter she's blind in one eye, it's called microphthalmia, and she had a cleft palate at birth. Well, she qualified for services as an individual with a developmental disability in the beginning because she was so delayed. She got all of her services, got everything she needed. She caught up. She had me as a mom. I was not going to let her. She was going to figure it out. So she figured it out. She's age appropriate now, still blind in one eye, but doesn't qualify for anything because She's not fully blind. So she doesn't even qualify with the individuals with blindness in New York State. She doesn't qualify for that. She doesn't qualify for anything, which I'm okay with. But the problem is unless someone's severe enough or doesn't have a label, you don't get anything. You have no support. You get no help. So there's a really bad middle ground that's not being supported. And those are the people that unfortunately end up on lifetime disability, lifetime ISS, lifetime food stamps, and like, not that it's a bad thing. We grew up with that myself. We had food stamps and all that stuff, Medicaid, all that. And it helped my mom, but luckily we were able to get it. But like, it's the perpetuation of having them stay on it for why do they have to stay on it? Why can't they do something? And there is so many things that they could do. Like I have one guy, he's not going to hold a typical job. He's not. But he could be a greeter at Walmart. That kid remembers every name that comes in, that like doesn't forget a name years later. That kid would greet every person and know their name. And like, that would be an amazing job for him. And he's so cute. He's so funny. Like I would love to see that face every time I walked into Walmart to say, hi, Marcie. I would love it, but it's like those things they're not valued. Like that's not valued. Like he can't run a register. So whatever, he doesn't matter, so that stuff is what bothers me. There's still value in other things. And I think that's a big thing that's missing is people don't feel valued. I think everyone needs to feel valued. And no matter what you do, like all of the students in my room, every single one of them does a chore every day. And it doesn't matter, whatever it is, it's a chore and it depends on them and how they can handle it, whatever, but they all have chores every day. And because they're part of that classroom and they need to help us keep it clean. So, and they do it. Some of them I have to give a Reese's peanut butter cup to do it, but they do it. I have to do some payment there, but it works and it teaches them the skill. So whatever, If I have to give a Reese's peanut butter cup, fine, so be it, whatever, that's fine. So, oh goodness, but that's my feeling about that. So,
well, thank you for that. So what I wanted to also ask you is, what advice would you give people that are intrigued or interested in starting a business like yours or going towards special education, as well as on another front, what advice would you give parents that are just coming in, they find out, okay, my child has these different struggles, like how, because sometimes, as we've talked about earlier, the resources aren't there because people don't understand or try to have that awareness. So for those coming in with that, I know this is a loaded question.
No, it's fine.
Like, what advice would you give them as well?
So as far as advice to others about business, starting a business, my biggest thing is first, be a human. Just be a human. Be yourself. Don't try to put on a front about who you are. Like I could totally come and be like, I'm Dr. Marcie Goodrow. I don't do that because I don't need to. And honestly, I've been successful because I am genuine to who I am. That's why I've been successful, because I am me. This is me. I don't care in any format I'm on. It doesn't matter where I am. This is me, and take it or leave it. It doesn't matter to me at this point. I already talked about this before. Leave your ego behind. Your ego does not have a play in this. You need to leave it behind. So people want to call me Marcie, fine. I don't care what you call me. You can call me Mrs. Goodrow, Marcie, Dr. Good. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. My ego is second in everything. Actually, it's last if I can make it last. But egos are strong. They're powerful. When you do something you love, success follows. So if you find something that makes you happy when you do it and you can get paid for it, good Lord, do it. Because I go to work every day, happy to go to work. And there's not a lot of people that can say that, sadly. But I've also kind of created my environment in some ways because I'm not afraid to speak up. I'm not afraid to advocate for people. Quite honestly, I know that if I'm doing what's best for the good in whole, then it's going to be fine, truthfully. And if someone doesn't agree with me, you don't have to agree with me. It doesn't mean I'm going to be quiet about it. It doesn't mean I'm not going to do what I'm going to do, because what's better for the person is what I'm going to do. Whether you approve of it or not, it doesn't matter. Like I went to a funeral yesterday for one of my students. That family needed hugs. I don't care that it's COVID and that whatever, they're getting hugs from me. It doesn't matter. And actually they weren't going to let it go away anyway, because they all swarmed me when I came in. But I needed to give those children hugs. I needed to give their mother a hug. I can't imagine being a parent who lost my child. I can't imagine what that feels like. She was getting a hug from me. I don't care if people liked it or not. My supervisor was there. She knows how I am. She's 20 years we've been together. She's like, Marcie's going to do what Marcie's going to do. And she didn't hug, but that's her decision. She didn't really know them. That's fine. I hugged every single person that I needed to hug that yesterday. And they needed it. Those poor people needed it. And I needed it to move on. That was a rough one, but I did it. Also taking care of yourself, which is something I'm still working on. You need to take care of yourself too. Like 10 to 15 minutes a day, even. Like I try to do 10 or 15 minutes of yoga, go for a walk, do something every day that's just for me. Even if it's just watching my favorite show for a half an hour and just zoning out into a show. Because I kind of get into like a show zone. When I get in like something I like, I watch the entire thing and then I move on to my next thing. You need to find the thing that makes you feel like you're full again. Like if you can't give unless if you're empty. So like for me, every morning I pull tarot cards for myself and I write little things about gratitude, and it takes me about 20 minutes every morning, but I do it every morning. And when I don't feel grounded for the day. I don't feel like so that's my time in the morning, my coffee, my tarot cards, my journal. And that's what I do. I wake up early purposely, so I have time to do it. So I think it's that. I do think the big thing is it's the ego. Leave your ego behind. Do what's best for the whole as much as you can. Remember to play. Play should be part of your work in some way. Like you enjoy speaking and talking, and that's play for you. This isn't work for you. It is, but it's not. So, like for me, like I love talking about this stuff. Like people can pay me all they want to talk to people and groups of people. That's fine, but I don't have to get paid. It doesn't matter to me because I enjoy it. So I keep an open mind with people and learn how to sit in someone else's shoes, learn how to walk in someone else's shoes, because that's how I've been successful. I watch people, I look at them, I talk to them. If they can't speak, I figure out ways to communicate with them. Like I will figure it out, because every person has likes and needs and wants and dislikes. And that's the thing that's forgotten, is the dislike part. So people are allowed to dislike things. It's okay. And if they don't want to do it, don't, whatever. Like I'm not going to have people forcing me to do something I don't want to do. So it's, the big thing is ego and finding time for yourself. And the finding time for myself is something I'm always struggling with, because I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a teacher. I try, I really do. But my tarot time is my one time a day that I will not give up. I won't give it up for anything. And I like my ride into work. I commute to work. So that's when I listen to books, and I sometimes listen to music and just sing as loud as I can. It just depends. Yeah. And actually I speak to spirits that way. So I'll ask for the universe to send me a message or an answer to something. And often the music will come on that corresponds to that. And that's what I need for the day. So I do believe the universe does talk to you. I believe the universe gives you messages if you're looking for them. If you're not paying attention, it's not going to. So I'm spiritual that way too. So I do believe the universe supports you if you're on the right path. I do think that sometimes you get hit in the gut with things, and I think there's a reason for that. Although it's not fun at the time, but I think there is a reason for it. It's just finding it is the hard part. So, I've tried to leave my job in my current position 3-4 times, and every time I get sucked back in. So I'm not leaving. So it's just what it is. Like I am there, and it's fine. I love it, but sometimes it's the other stuff around it that makes me crazy. It's the politics and the favoritism, all that kind of stuff gets to me sometimes. And I just, but the universe will not let me go. So I'm going to stay till I retire, which I still have too long. I have 14 years before I can retire. So, but I've been teaching for 20. So I started teaching at 20 years old. So I'm going to be tired, but hopefully I can still I can just keep finding the joy in it and just keep going on with it and I know once I retire, I'm not going to really retire. I can't sit still. It's not going to happen. So
It's gonna be retire.
yeah, retire. I already told my husband I want one of those RVs and he's going to drive me around and I'm going to just talk to people. I'm going to just like go and teach and do whatever. And he's like, okay. I'm like, you're going to be my chauffeur. We're going to live in the RV.
That's
so,
perfect.
That's my plan anyway. We'll see what happens.
Well, I think that all of those advice and tips for the business aspect, for entrepreneurship, I think that those are so important, and I appreciate you for bringing them up, because sometimes I forget how intense ego is, and it's nice to hear that in perspective.
Oh, and for families, I did forget to answer this. For families,
yes.
Parents, trust your gut. Okay. A first opinion is not a final opinion. So if you don't like what someone's telling you and you know in your heart that it's not the right thing, find someone else to help you. My daughter, I have fought with so many doctors over her lifetime, and I'm always right in the end of it. And because we know our kids. So you do what's best for you, what's best for your kids. And if it don't care what anyone else thinks, it doesn't matter. Doctors are supposed to be okay with second opinions. And they don't have to be okay with it, quite frankly. If you want to go find someone else to look at your child, then do it. You can always call me. I'll see if I can help. But just trust your gut with your child. Like, you know your kid. And if sometimes if school's too much, let them take some time off. Like, my kids take mental health days from school. They take mental health days from life in general at times. And I do too. And they've seen me do that. And I'm trying to teach them through them watching me. Like, I needed a day, so I take a day. Whether I'm busy, I'm not, I don't care. I take a day. That as parents is important too. Sometimes you just need a day. So just stay home by yourself. And if it means doing research about your child's disability or your child's thing that's going on, do some research on it. There's so much information out on the internet, and there's so many self quizzes and there's so many things on the internet that will help you if you take it with you to the pediatrician, or you take it with you. There's so many free resources out there. Just don't second guess yourself. You know your child. You just do. And you don't have to explain it to anybody, because most pediatricians have children too, and they understand, and they wouldn't take an answer from somebody if they didn't agree with it. So why should you have to? That's a lot of parents get very just frustrated and disheartened. And I know I've been there, where I've had to fight about things for Mia, and Madeline. I've had a couple of instances with her, but it's, in the end, I was always right. And it's because you know your kid, and they deserve to have you as their advocate. So don't apologize for advocating for your child, because a lot of people feel bad about it. The doctors, they get paid either way. They do their job. Some of them don't intentionally not understand. They just don't have the expertise in certain areas. It's not their fault. They just don't have the expertise. So find someone that does. And if they won't give you a referral, say, I'm not asking you, I'm demanding a referral. And thank you. And I'll be on my way. And that's what I've done. I've done it. I've done it for myself even. And that's the thing too, is take care of yourself, because you can't take care of your kids if you're not taken care of. And I've done it. I've had to say, I want a referral here, or I want this tested, or I want, and because they don't see it, because sometimes they just don't, they're human too. So it's not purposeful a lot of the time. They just don't see it, or they're busy, or they're preoccupied with something else, or they're human too. And that's important to remember too, that doctors, teachers, they're all human too. And we forget things. We don't see things that you see. So, that's important too. So that's my advice for families. Don't always listen to the first person that tells you.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. I've learned that, not with, obviously I do not have any children, but I've learned that with just finding out that I had endometriosis, it took like almost 10 plus years to get that. So
yeah,
I understand the struggle of the first doctor, like all these things were told to me. So I appreciate you sharing that as well, because that's true. You don't have to go by the first opinion. And you know your body, just like you know your children.
Yeah.
So I wanted you to share because you have such amazing programs. One day, I believe you're going to write this book,
Someday.
or maybe you could get a ghostwriter and they can write it.
Maybe that would be a good idea. Good idea.
Where can they follow your journey or your career? Like, where can they find you?
Well, I have a Facebook page that's called Good to Know Goodrow that they can go to. It's a public page. They can follow on there to see what I'm doing in my home programming. I also have a website on Wix. It's Good to Know Goodrow. If you type it in at wix.com, you'll find it. And I do have a YouTube page, I think it's called a page. I don't know. Channel, sorry. YouTube channel. And I used it for when I was home teaching remotely to students. So I do have that, but I have my email, goodtoknowgoodrow@hotmail.com. They can message me on Facebook. I think after talking to you, I may have to look into something else, like some other way for people to get in touch with me, or to see what I'm doing. Cause I don't do updates all the time on things because I just don't. But I could definitely, you can find me in any of those places on the Wix.com website, Facebook, Good to Know Goodrow, are the easiest places to get a hold of me. So.
Perfect. Thank you for being on here and sharing so much with us. Like I said, I think you're such an amazing person. You do a lot of beautiful things, and
Thank
you
you.
see people as humans.
Humans. Humans. Yes.
I think that's awesome. So thank you so much for coming on with me. Before we end, I always like to end with affirmations. So, for anyone listening, pick a number between 1 and 3. And these affirmations are brought to you by Peace of Mind with Allie. Number 1, for group number 1, your affirmation is I didn't come this far to allow doubt to win over. Number 2, for group 2, I choose to cultivate a spirit of resilience. Number 3, in group 3, I know that I was made for something beautiful. With that, you are loved, you are worthy, you are cherished, and I am proud of you. Until next time on the Brie Pod. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.